Welcome everyone to our 6th annual elevator pitch competition organized by GPS STEM UC Irvine. This is our most popular event of the year. And this event also marks the end of the whole year of busy programming GPS STEM has been doing. First 4 years, we did it in person, but unfortunately, that's not possible right now. But this time we decided to do a live broadcast of it so that you can still get a sort of feel of how, maybe in person it looks like. Today, we have 12 PhD students from STEM disciplines pitching about their passions, about their research, whatever they really like doing. All these 12 students have been coached by our awesome trainer, Bri McWhorter. Bri uses a very unique communication technique, which is more from an actor's point of view. So it's been fun watching her and in person, and she's been able to improvise that for online format also. So it's been amazing working with her. Bri is MFA in acting from UC Irvine. She got her BA in theater and performance studies from UC Berkeley. So all what you're going to see today is a result and all the tireless effort of Bri, which has gone into preparing these 12 students in the pitch competition. So with that, I will give it to Bri McWhorter to kick off the event and move it forward. Thank you, Bri.
Thank you very much. I am thrilled to be hosting tonight's competition because it really gives us an opportunity to get to know the people in the GPS STEM program. And this elevator pitch competition was created to help students prepare for their careers, for that next step. And that next step often comes down to the interview. And one of the most common interview questions is, tell me about yourself, which can be a very hard question to answer because there's so many different ways that you could talk about yourself. But since it's one of the questions brought up really early on in the process, you want to make sure that you're using this moment to its full potential. So we created this competition to give students the opportunity to start thinking about what they wanted to talk about, practicing it. And so when that opportunity really comes up, they know how to work it. And now, since GPS STEM is full of people from different backgrounds with a lot of different career interests, you're going to be hearing a lot of different types of content tonight, from academic research to science policy to people who are interested in the industry. And it's going to be varied and fun. So judges, instead of just coaching the pitches on specific content, you should be looking at this from a lens of the overall impression of the contestant, whether you feel connected to them, if you get excited about their passion, and if you think that they would be a really good addition to a team. And that leads me to be able to introduce the people who will be judging tonight's competition. We have an amazing panelist line up tonight. We have Gertrude Nonterah, a scientific writer and adjunct professor at Cuyamaca College. We have Stefan Brooks, a technical advisor at Rutten and Tucker.
Hello, everyone.
And then Julius Edson, a business development associate and co-founder at Responsive Polymers Therapeutics.
Good evening, everyone. How's it going?
Thank you all for being here and judging tonight. So for tonight's competition, what's going to happen is I'm going to ask each contestant to tell me about yourself. They will then have 2 minutes to give their pitch. And then afterwards, judges, you will use your rubric to score them. You'll have about a minute or so to do this while I ask them a follow-up question about their career, where they see themselves going, what's the next step, and we can get to know them a little bit more. After everybody has gone, then while the scores are being tallied up, I'm going to turn the tables and ask the judges a question about how the elevator pitch has been useful for them in their career or specific moments where it's really stood out. And we can get some career advice along the way. And then afterwards, once the scores have been tallied up, we will announce the winners. Now, the third place winner will receive $50. Second place will get $100. And the first place winner will get $150. But everyone will be celebrated because the overall competition is going to be amazing. So with that, I'm going to start this competition. The order you will see in front of you laid out on this poster in front of you. Excellent. I will start by asking, Komal, tell me about yourself.
What comes to your mind when you hear someone as a graduate student researcher? Intelligent, hardworking, but likely an overworked and underpaid student employee. Now add to this vision a graduate student who's also a parent, trying to achieve the seemingly impossible balance of life and work. Hi, my name is Komal Syed, and I'm a PhD candidate in material science and engineering. I'm also mother of a young toddler. As a researcher, I study how different processing techniques affect the atomic structure and dynamic of defects in ceramic materials, which is critical knowledge for improving material properties. On a more human level, though, I'm a person who loves advocating for their community. I'm passionate about the graduate student parent community because I have personally experienced the emotional and financial challenges of being a productive graduate student while raising young children. In Irvine, a full-time childcare can easily cost $1,500 or more per month. This monthly expense is like 75% of an average student income. The university has a childcare center, but with often very long wait list, most graduate students have to resort to outside childcare options with no subsidized options available. Remember, a graduate student is no other different than a parent in other parts of the academic community, like your faculty member, your dean. We're all trying to achieve our career goals while taking care of kids. Therefore, I believe the university ecosystem will greatly benefit from having guaranteed subsidized childcare services for all UCI parents. On-campus childcare can help parents, focus better at work and increase their productivity. On a larger scale, though, from universities' benefit, guaranteed childcare can be an important factor in attracting and retaining talented graduate students and early career researchers. I believe it is important to speak up for the needs of our local community so we can all thrive and focus on what we do best. Important fundamental research for the progress of our society. Thank you all for listening today.
Well done. We'll pretend that we hear the thunderous applause that normally accompanies this. We'll have the little emojis and everything, but well done.
Thank you.
While we have a minute or so to chat, while you're advocating and working, where do you see your career going in your next steps?
As an experimental researcher starting off the PhD, always in my mind was to next step will be a postdoc. And then eventually go to work in a national lab. But this past year, especially the pandemic, has kind of shifted my point of view. I see myself questioning where I really see myself long term. And I have really developed a passion in science policy. And for that, I even enrolled in a course with actually Jharrayne was one of for the directors of the program on advocacy and science policy. And I see myself, at least for the immediate future, and then long term, I have some other plans, is to be hopefully a policy fellow in either a government organization, and then if needed, maybe an industry fellowship.
I love that. I can definitely see you conquering that role. Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Excellent. Now, Anna, why don't you tell me about yourself?
Hi, Bri. Well, I'm really passionate about helping people, especially when they are dealing with something as overwhelming and serious as cancer. Whether this is through my research where I study signaling pathways that may have important implications in cancer, or by going to the Capitol to advocate for cancer research funding. I know that my voice matters, and I want to use it to help those who feel that their voices are not being heard. As most of us know, cancer does not discriminate, and so many people are affected by it every single day. Cancer is currently the second leading cause of death in the US. Almost 5,000 new cases are diagnosed every day, and unfortunately, about 1,600 lives are lost daily. Because of these statistics, every single one of us has or will most likely be impacted by cancer to some degree. Thankfully, my mom is healthy now, but she battled thyroid cancer for many years when I was younger. Even though she did her best to hide her illness from me, the day I saw her faint while walking to the bedroom will be engraved in my mind forever. Many people have stories like this, and unfortunately, many people have stories that are much worse. But the good news is that we are making a lot of amazing improvements in this field, creating more treatments and therapies. And a huge reason for that is research that is funded from federal government agencies, such as the National Cancer Institute. And even though in recent years there has been this push and a movement to provide more funding to the NCI through things such as the 21st Century CARES Act, the costs associated with research continue to increase, resulting in slower development of these treatments. Ultimately, cancer is hundreds of different diseases that all fall under this one name. Each of these diseases needs individual research to provide individualized treatments. In order for us to keep making strides in this field, the NCI needs funding that can keep up with both the increased costs of cancer research as well as with inflation. Sometimes our daily routines allow us to forget, but our research is so important and it helps real everyday people who are fighting for their lives. But in order for us to keep helping them, we must use our voices for the resources that we need. Thank you.
Well done. Yes. And thank you for using your voice for such an important cause. So where do you see your career going? Is it continuing in the science policy realm? Are you going to be doing both? Where do you see this going?
So like Komal, I took the STEM or the GPS STEM class for science policy. It was a science policy for scientists class. And I really enjoyed it. And until this class, I didn't know that there was a place for scientists in policy or in government. And so taking this class got me really excited because I now knew that I could have a career where I could mesh both science and policy, because both of those were areas that I've always been really interested in. And then as Komal mentioned, this pandemic has really shown us a lot, and it's shown us that there is this disconnect between scientists, the public, and policymakers. And I think it's up to us as scientists to bridge that disconnect, to bridge that gap. And so ultimately, I would like a career where I can use my passion for both science and advocacy to help my community.
I love that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to hear from another amazing member of the GPS STEM community, and I would like to welcome Kara. So Kara, why don't you tell me about yourself?
Thank you, Bri. I believe that science has two cornerstones: understanding the science and being able to communicate it. Like many scientists, my passion sparked with the desire to understand and learn when I held a sheep's brain for the first time during an introductory neuroscience course. Although not as intricate as a human brain, the complex structures and pathways sewn throughout it made me realize just how vital each area is, even the seemingly insignificant ones. As I looked at the brain and considered its complex nature, I contemplated the seriousness of damage caused by trauma and its long-lasting consequences. Having witnessed the devastation caused by a brain injury firsthand, this experience confirmed my passion for neuroscience. My nephew suffered from a brain injury at a young age due to a car accident, which has caused many hurdles throughout his life. And as he grew older and his brain developed, many unforeseen issues arose long after the scars had healed. He struggled with speech articulation, emotional regulation, and attention. Seeing these issues emerge and his true commitment to conquer them is really what inspired me to learn more about the brain and its ability to adapt. Witnessing this tragedy in my nephew's life has led me to complete my bachelor's degree, pursue my doctorate, and research the intricacies within the developing brain. In my pursuit of understanding the developing brain, I've worked on many projects, all with the central theme of uncovering how early experiences really can adjust long-term outcomes. During this time, I've studied everything from alcohol exposure in utero to pediatric traumatic brain injury and even early life adversity. As these are all growing issues that impact our children, I often discuss my research with a wide variety of people, most of the time people who are outside of the sciences. Throughout my pursuit of neuroscience, I grew another passion, one for communications, the other cornerstone of science. I coordinated for my department's monthly journal club and have joined a science communications club that focuses on presenting the science we do here at UCI to the broader community. As I finish up my graduate work, I'm looking to step back from the bench and into a more communications forward role. Since I have spent many years concentrating on understanding the science of the developing brain, I am now looking to focus on the other cornerstone of communicating science and helping others achieve their research goals. Thank you.
Yes, well done. Well, I'm also passionate about communicating. I know this is a shock. So, where do you see this communication route going? What would you like to be doing in this next stage?
So I'm hoping to transition into a field application scientist role, which is a good combination of both science and communications. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm in my 5th year of my graduate study, so it's coming up on that pretty soon.
Are there specific projects that you want to be involved in? Because I know that from your pitch, you've done a few different things. Is there a specific realm that you're interested in?
Yeah, so my thesis mainly focuses on early life adversity. And so the one thing that's kind of connected all of them, aside from all being developmental, is I study circuits using MRI. And so that's one thing I really like, is that it's translatable to clinic. And so you're able to really kind of see that transition from basic research into the clinic.
Nice. Well, I'll let you do that part because it sounds like you're on it. Thank you very much for sharing your pitch tonight.
Thank you.
All right, next we are going to hear from Irene. So Irene, tell me about yourself.
Our society is constantly on the move, and everybody wants to get to their destination in an efficient and reliable way. But this is not always possible. Sometimes you're stuck in traffic. As a civil engineer focusing on transportation, I want to improve mobility to make it more safe, more efficient, and more reliable. Transportation itself is a quite complex system because it involves both the physical laws on how the vehicles move, but also the human behavior and their decisions, like when to exit your home or whether you're willing to pay for a service or not. But it is this complexity that makes transportation so interesting to me. What I love about my research is to identify the situations where traffic congestion can happen, develop models to study it, and test different strategies to make recommendations on how to eliminate or mitigate the problem. For example, I have worked on freeway bottlenecks, which are the cause of severe congestion, and I have helped to identify and answer the question on how to design the location of speed limits in order to control the vehicles before they reach the bottleneck, so that they don't stop and they can reach their destinations faster. At the urban network level, I'm interested in answering questions such as how many shared mobility vehicles do we need in order to accommodate a certain demand? These shared vehicles can be both buses, trains, but also new mobility services such as Uber or Lyft. In the future, I want to join a university and continue researching as a professor to use my knowledge to dig deeper and understand the roots of the transportation problems. I want to continue developing models to test which policy strategy works best to push mobility forward. Thank you.
Well done. Nice. So this sounds complex. I know that there's a few mobility issues that we have. And so you said you wanted to be a professor. What type of work do you see yourself doing?
So I really want to focus on shared mobility systems. I know that when I'm from Europe, and when I came to the United States, everything is focused on the individual private car, right? They are generating the congestion, but I strongly believe that the future is sharing, and the future is buses, trains, or vehicles that can increase the occupancy and reduce the vehicle miles. And especially I'm interested in working these type of problems because lower income households or people that have caretaking tasks are relying on these public systems and public services. So I hope that by improving these mobility systems, we can make transportation more equitable and also have a more equitable society.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. I completely agree. Well, thank you. And I look forward to seeing the continued work that you do.
Thank you.
All right, next, we're going to welcome Marav. So Marav, tell me about yourself.
Well, Bri, 3 years ago, I had a career pivot. I had an interesting career for more than 10 years working on mechanical design and finite element analysis. But watching my father struggling with his motor disability arising from his Parkinson's disease, I realized that I want to make a change. I wanted to see and learn how can we use the best and the newest technology that we have out there to help people with neurological diseases just like my father. And especially today with COVID, that in-person therapy is limited, we have to think out of the box and we have to get creative. And this is exactly what we were doing in my current project, where we were forced to leave the lab environment, where we were looking at ways to train dancers to look in a certain way and switch into the home setup. And we did it by developing a fun, motivating computer game that train people to dance with their computer mouse in a certain way. We are doing it by introducing a new adaptive reinforcement approach that incorporates the benefit from learning through exploration, which is exactly the way we learn to walk as babies and ride our bikes as kids, but we also introducing hints when needed to reduce the undesired frustration that usually also comes with a traditional reinforcement approach. Living with motor disability can be very hard and very frustrating. But thankfully, with the technology that we have today, we can create new and a more effective way to help these people and to rehabilitate. And this is exactly what I'm hoping to do with my research. Thank you.
Yes, well done.
Thank you.
So tell me about the next steps, where you see this going. Do you have a career trajectory that now that you've switched, you're trying to follow?
Yeah, my plan is going back to industry, and I'm hoping to use all the new skills that I got through the PhD program and used all the new technology that I was exposed to. But I also hope that I will be able to stay in touch with the academic and with the group that I am working with currently and be part of future projects that will come from my current project, because I really hope to see it develop to an actual product that will be out there someday.
I love that. And so you feel very connected to your current team.
Yes, very much.
Well, I'm very glad that you have a supportive environment around you and that you've made this pivot and that you'll continue to leverage these skills in the future. So thank you for sharing your pitch.
Thank you.
All right, next, we're going to hear from another amazing person in the GPS STEM community. And I would like to ask a question that I think everyone is waiting for, which is, Joya, why don't you tell me about yourself?
Hi, I'm Joya. In today's world, it's good to be prepared, especially when global warming is rising sea level and threatening our beloved coastal environment. Precise predictions can help us, especially useful for our coastal communities. I'm helping to improve the accuracy of predictions by analyzing past and current patterns of sea level rise. I construct a 40-year record from melting glaciers and ice sheets. My record is a combination of both satellite observations and numerical models. My record doubled the existing data record length. With my extended record, I calculate sea level fingerprints around the globe. Just like each individual has unique fingerprints, each piece of melting ice produces a distinct spatial pattern at different parts of the world's ocean. These fingerprints allow me to identify coastal regions that are under the most significant risk historically. Climate change affects us all. It's not only just an environmental issue, it permeates into every sector in our society, including social equity, economic prosperity, and also quality of life of everyone. That's why it's not enough just to conduct research. I also care about working with local communities and also sharing my results with like government agencies. If we are going to be prepared for our climate's future, we have to conduct research and to communicate with one another and to work together to make it happen. Thank you.
Yes, I completely agree with that statement. We absolutely need to work together to face these issues. And so where do you see this work going in the future? Do you have a career trajectory in mind?
Yes, so I'm very interested in working for a nonprofit and caring about climate change. So I like to work with a combination of bench work, doing some data analysis of our current climate change hazards. And also I'd like to have direct engagement with local communities to help them have a better preparation for those climate change impacts.
And how does that work when you're communicating with the community? Do you go through are you already doing that? Is that something that you're looking forward to doing in the future?
I'm looking forward to it. And currently I'm also planning to build up a website to show my results using like straightforward language and like videos. So people can also leave comments and have like real-time interactions to ask if they have any questions about climate change in general.
Well, excellent. I will be logging on as soon as that is available. So let me know.
Thank you.
Next, I would like to welcome Jay, and I have a very important question for you, which is, why don't you tell me about yourself?
Hi, everybody. Today I'm here to talk to you about my passion for bridging the gap, which is a salsa way of saying closing the racial disparity of African American representation within STEM and careers of academic research and higher education. When I was a kid, you'd ask me, Jay, what do you want to be? And I'd be like, oh, a doctor, specifically a pediatric neurosurgeon. So it's a misconception among the medical field, period, when you are unexposed that you can say either medical doctor or you'll say nurse. Those are the two careers that are most obvious to us. But as an undergrad matriculating at an HBCU, it was an invaluable contribution to my success now as a PhD student to have women mentors who were PhD holders themselves, and they gave me my passion. I want to pick up the mantle. I want to be a role model. I want to be a mentor. I want to work with students. I want to advise them, guide them as my mentors did for me. And in order to put my plan into action, I have become a mentor and participating on a couple of different organizations on campus that specifically work with underrepresented minorities so that we can instill confidence in them. We can expose them to not only that STEM is challenging, that's of course happening, but it's fun, it's awesome. It has so many opportunities for them. So we want to assuage their doubts. We want to instill confidence with them, inside of them. And I've always felt that science is a dynamic and inclusive field. It runs the spectrum of everything you can learn. So the people who contribute to science should be the same. They should be every color and come from every circumstance. Thank you.
Well done. I completely agree. And know that you will be doing this completely throughout your career. So do you have a specific career trajectory in mind that you want to make sure that you're accomplishing all of these goals?
Yes. I'm a little bit of a goofball, so I call it my ultimate evil plan. I'd love to work with a nonprofit in tandem with working as a tenured professor at a university, at an HBCU, specifically open a research institute where I can mentor and expose the students to research. It's very important to me that not only am I teaching the next generation, but I'm giving them the experience that I felt I myself lacked before I could pursue graduate school. So that's the life plan.
I love it. And you're getting to do a little bit of that even now. So the evil plan has already begun. And so it's just being the plan is expanding.
Yes, expanding to the years, because I get to have all this fun now, and I hope to continue the fun and make an even larger impact once doctor's in front of my name.
I love it. I love it. Yes, the letters will give you a little extra there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, I have a wonderful person to welcome to the Zoom stage. Brandon, tell me about yourself.
Hello, Bri. Well, I'm an engineering, and as a kid, the idea of helping my community thrive was a constant always on my head. You know, I wanted to use my skills to help solve environmental problems and preserve the resources of the places where I live in. But in order to figure out where to start, I knew I needed to listen what my community actually needed help with. That's why I've been involved in a lot of different projects in my career, from installing solar panels in remote areas which needed much access to electricity, to bringing hot water into my own home during winter times, or by reducing electrical bills on residential areas. Also, being able to talk to people helped me learn about different perspectives on how the same problem can be solved in different ways. And it's pretty interesting to see just how by giving your time and focus, you learn so much about the people itself. And I realized that engineering applied into my community was not only about making their lives simple, it was also about a good way to improve social equality. And that's for me is what engineering is all about. Listening to my community, figuring out what they actually need, and using my skill set to make their lives better.
Love that. And thank you for doing it.
No, thank you for listening.
So where do you see this next career step going? I know that you're going to continue to help your community, but is there something specific you have in mind?
Well, there's a lot of pathways I've been thinking on. And, once you start your PhD path, there's a broader perspective or different ways you can go into policy or industry or even in academia. I see myself more or less going into industry and making maybe some involved in some policy making. But definitely what is going to be tried is how I can listen to what my community is saying and then help them with.
So you're looking for a role where you can really have everything come together, as long as the ultimate goal is the helping.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really important. And I loved hearing about the specific projects that you've done in the past. So I'm excited to hear about the ones that come up in the future.
Yeah. For sure, it would be awesome to work with them.
Well, thank you very much for sharing tonight.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I have another question so Vincent, why don't you tell me about yourself?
Thanks, Bri. I remember the paradoxical moment when the clouds parted and I was simultaneously hit by a thunderbolt from fate. It came during a seminar given by one of the founders of synthetic biology, who spoke about how he and his team engineered one of the first synthetic biological devices, a simple switch circuit in a cell, just like the ones we use to turn on the lights. This unconventional ingenuity fascinated me and sparked my transition from biomedical engineer to a bioengineer. Instead of creating devices that help people, I wanted to create cells that help people. However, to create cellular devices, we must understand how cells communicate with one another. Our cells constantly send messages to one another in a sequential manner. There's an underlying rhythm to this communication, just like there is in music. Different sequences of messages can result in developing tissue, like a song in a major key, or indicate the presence of cancer, like the song in a minor key. In a sense, messages cells send one another are more like musical notes cells play one another. Currently, we don't quite understand the notes cells play and how they are perceived by one another. We do know that the notes played by one cell can be perceived differently by different cells, as if they have different tastes in music. Current laboratory techniques to study the complex music of cells and how they're perceived by one another are arduous, requiring a lot of expensive reusable reagents and time spent collecting data. These constraints limit the number of notes we can study. What if we could accelerate our understanding of the music cells play by at least a factor of 100-fold and with a fraction of the reagents used? By combining microfluidics with machine learning, that is exactly what I'm trying to do. With this knowledge, scientists specializing in different aspects of human physiology can determine what is a typical sonata played by a cell that they've studied their entire careers. This will help them determine why cells change their tune during diseases. Additionally, this knowledge will help us orchestrate the formation of new tissues, such as cartilage or cardiac tissue. We can make a difference in medicine by understanding the melodies cells play one another, and this is a beautiful symmetry of science and art that shocks me out of bed in the morning. Thank you.
Love that. And it sounds very complex, but I think you explained it in a very useful way. Where do you see this work going? Do you have a specific career in mind?
Specific career, no. I know that the next step most likely is going to be a postdoc in this area. It's really fascinating to me, obviously, and I think there's a lot of potential to it. I came from industry before, so but I'm really interested in academia and the freedom that it provides. So merging the two would also be nice.
So you're looking to continue this type of work just in a different type of role, but really expanding it.
Yeah, actually, one thing that's really interesting is how can we link this with tissue engineering, which is, I guess, a field right for what I really want to do it for, because I think before I actually patented a device, a tissue engineering device, I was like, man, this is really bad. But with this research, I was like, wow, we can actually maybe use this here. So I'm excited about the possibilities of using it in tissue engineering.
Well, I look forward to seeing you do that.
Thanks.
Thank you so
Bri.
much. All right, next, I'm very curious if, Sophia, could you tell me about yourself?
Thanks, Bri. Don't shoot for the stars. We already know what's there. Aim for the space in between, because that's where the mystery lies. This is one of the most inspirational quotes I've ever read, and it serves as a great description of my work. The quote is by an astronomer named Vera Rubin, who in the 1970s discovered a whole invisible universe among us. There's a lot more to this than meets the eye, literally. Regular matter like stars, galaxies, gas, you, me, your dog, anything that you can see and touch, anything, is only a small fraction of all the matter in this universe. The rest of it is invisible and untouchable, and we call it dark matter. And this stuff is everywhere, even in your room right now. And because it doesn't interact with anything, it passes through you all the time and you don't feel a single thing, which is wildly cool, but that's also the reason why experimental detection is very difficult and why we still haven't found it. There is one thing that links dark matter to regular matter though, and that's that they both interact with gravity. And because we have a good understanding of gravity and how objects behave under it, then we can track the dark matter by looking for the regular matter and following it, then looking in between to see in that space. Is it a particle, or is our understanding of gravity just fundamentally incorrect? We don't know. And that's why we really need to learn how fundamentally this stuff works so that we can understand the universe. 50 years ago, Vera Rubin went and did as she said, and looked to the stars, looked in between and beyond, and found that dark matter exists. Today, we get to look even deeper to find out what dark matter is. We're the generation that gets to answer one of the most pressing questions the universe has to offer, and it's thrilling to be part of it.
Well done. Yes, it is. And so as this next generation, where do you see your next steps going? And I'm assuming it's with dark matter.
Yeah, so I definitely want to be a professor. I would like to go onto a postdoc position, but I also love doing science communication. And so I would, I really love to do that on the side anyway, and I would always do it. I love doing videos. I love just talking about this stuff. And so it would actually work to be a professor, because then I can teach people in a more accessible way, because I feel that a lot of people get afraid of this stuff because of how it's presented to them. But if you can see how amazing it is and just, you know, throw away all the math and stuff for a second, then it's so much more approachable. And that's what I love to do. I love to blow people's minds with this stuff.
Yes, I could see the math part being a little bit of a hurdle, but I think that you'll present it in a very, very engaging way.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And next, Jose, could you tell me about yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jose Santamaria, and I really love finding creative solutions to all sorts of problems. I'm currently an aerospace engineer, and that degree has prepared me for incredible things like running aerodynamic simulations or doing rocket propulsion calculations. But before summer 2020, I had never stepped into an experimental lab, like never. But when I just joined my current research group this past summer, I was given a room full of crates and boxes, and my task was to transform that into a combustion lab. Where other people might see like a crazy amount of work, which it is, I just saw like a world of opportunities. For example, I had to bring a canopy hood like the ones in your kitchen, only this one was a bit bigger, about 300 pounds, from a different floor in the same building and then hang it from the ceiling. So I just got a crane, a couple carts to help me transport it. I grabbed some struts that were abandoned in storage and build a stage structure so I can put the hood on it and raise it little by little until the desired hanging height. I had to get creative, and that's what I did. And those are the kind of abilities that I feel most proud of whenever they are needed. Whenever a lab mate comes to me looking for help, I just dive right in because a new challenge is a new opportunity for me. It doesn't matter what the task is, figuring out how to run a new combustion calculation or just helping a coworker. Every time that I'm able to help, every time that a solution of mine is successful, that really fuels me. And those are the kinds of things that drive me day to day. So that's me.
Well, thank you. And I'm sure there's been a lot of creative solutions that you've thought of over the years. I cannot say that I have helped with combustion things. So now, where do you see this creative solution path going for you personally?
So, well, when I was a kid, I wanted to be either a pilot or an astronaut. And well, I'm not gonna lie, if somebody right now knocked on my door and offered me the chance to jump into a rocket, I would do it. I wouldn't think twice. But right now, being more down to earth, so to say, I see that I would like help others become that astronaut, that pilot, and I would like to go to industry and help designing new planes, rockets, things like that. And I think I would be a very good fit for that because aerospace, for example, is a field that you need to be innovative. All the time you need to look for new solutions. For example, like recently we had these SpaceX rockets, well, the boosters that can be recovered after launch. And that was something that nobody had been able to do like 20 years ago. So it's in constant evolution. And I think I would be, well, I'm passionate about that and I would be really happy working on that field.
Well, whether you're down here helping us or if a knock comes on your door and you decide to go into the sky, we'll continue to support and cheer you on.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, last but not least, Lily, tell me about yourself.
Thank you, Bri. Hi, everyone. I'm Lily Chen, a fourth-year PhD student in cognitive neuroscience from UC Irvine. Well, people like to move around and explore, but getting lost can be really frustrating. As someone who has always been interested in neuroscience and the human mind, my research focuses on figuring out how people's sense of direction works. First, I used virtual reality to help people sit in front of a computer, move around and explore virtual hallways, which is kind of like playing a computer game, and to try to map their brain regions for wayfinding. And then I put people in an fMRI machine to see how moving around is related to brain activation. On the one hand, I'm really fascinated by how brain works that relates to human wayfinding. On the other hand, I think it's also equally important to know how to use that information. There's so many neurological disorders, such as Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and dementia, where people constantly lose their sense of direction. It's important to know how brain works, that we can further understand these diseases. This is a work I'm really passionate about and would like to keep contributing to. Ultimately, I like people continue to move around and explore, but help them to also know how to return home. That's what I'm really fascinated about and my work aims to do. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And yes, we would like to get them home safely. I completely agree. So where do you see this next stage of your career going? Is there a specific goal you have in mind?
Yeah, so I've been in neuroscience field for a while, and I've come up with my structure of like a sense of direction, how sense direction works in human brain. And something I noticed is that we always get information by observing human, but we don't know how accurate is the information we get. So I was thinking my next step is to better utilize the information I have and try to apply my computational models on things like on robots and see if robot behavior is similar to humans' navigation behavior, and to better verify the information we know. And at the same time, I am always passionate about science communication. So I am a part of Irvine CNLM, adult outreach group. So I advocate for many events to educate people in Irvine community to know more about brain. And like, you know, there's only so much I can do, but if I can inspire next generation and more community to know more about neuroscience and brain, then, well, we will find out more.
I have zero doubt that you will be doing all of that. Well, thank you all to the amazing contestants tonight. I know that it takes time to practice a pitch, to put it together, and also to decide to spend more time on Zoom. And I really appreciate the effort that everyone put into this so that we could just get to know this GPS STEM program and the individuals a little bit better. And now I would really like to take some time to get to know some perspective from the judges as well, because as people that we have invited to hear these pitches, I am sure that the judges have had some experience with the elevator pitch personally and how it may have impacted them. So I would love it if we could have the judges share their story with the elevator pitch, whether it was the moment you had to give it, or if it was in a networking opportunity where you found it really useful to be able to articulate what you do, and then if anything really came because of it. So Gertrude, why don't I start with you? Can you share your experience with the elevator pitch?
Yes, and I just wanted to say congrats to everyone. You all have really incredible stories, and it's really exciting. It's really motivated to hear all that you had to share. You know, wow, we have some great leaders coming up. So my experience with, and I wouldn't even call it an elevator pitch, but I did have an interview with a company a few years ago. And throughout the interview, I was just giving very technical answers, right? They would ask me a question and I'd give very technical answers. And then the last question the interviewer asked me was, why should we hire you out of everybody else? Because everybody has a PhD like you. Everybody has great research like you. Everybody has publications like you. Why should we choose you? And when he asked me that question, I don't know where it came from, but I had been in a postdoc and lost the postdoc because funding ran out. And the year following that, I was building my writing business, which I still have. And it was hard, like trying to build a business and find a job and take care of family. And I was doing it mostly because I have a son who is autistic and he needs services. And because I had lost my job as a postdoc, I had lost my health insurance. And so the health insurance that was covering him for his services were no longer available. So when he asked me, why should we hire you? I told him, I said, when I lost my job as a postdoc, I fought to continue making money so that my son could have the services he needs. And when I said that, I began to tear up. And the whole room was very silent. And he was like, thank you for sharing that with me. And what was the result? I did get the job. So essentially, I told him that I could work. I was a hard worker and that I was going to do whatever it took to be a good employee in that company, because that's what it meant to me to have this job. So I think, people don't realize the power of their stories, but it is a powerful thing to use your story in a world where everybody is just like you, but what sets you apart?
I completely agree. And I think it's those things that really let us connect to the person and see beyond the resume and really get to know the individual behind it.
Absolutely.
Yes. Now, Julius, would you like to share your experience with the elevator pitch or the interview process?
Sure. And following on what Gertrude said, it was fantastic pitch from all of y'all, and I really enjoyed it. It was fun to hear your passions and what makes you excited. And just following up on that is kind of the key part when you go to an interview or when you even meet people. Most people don't really want to know necessarily what your research about. They want to know about you. So the key points that I took from the elevator pitch and a lot of the science communication, working with Bri and being part of GPS 10 while I was a grad student, was the ability to communicate on a personal level. Whether you're talking about research, whether you're talking about your passions, whether you're talking about what goes on in your life, being able to link all that information together and being able to convey it to whoever's in front of you or whoever you run into in an elevator, because you never know who you're going to run into in an elevator that could make a difference for what kind of, whether it's a career path or a certain ambition. So being able to practice this elevator page was helpful for me personally, because I do entrepreneurship, startup company and business development. So being able to have that communication skill and ability to network in a very short period of time and get across what my passions are, what makes me excited, what makes me tick, is very valuable.
Yes, you were known, I think, in the GPS field as the networker. Everyone was, oh yeah, Julius, because you were so good at being able to go around and connect. It was amazing.
It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Stefan, can you want to share your experience with the pitch or the interview?
Yeah, sure. I actually just had an interview earlier this week, so great timing on this. And like Gertrude and Julia said, congratulations to everyone who participated today. It was great. You guys all did wonderful. I will say, the first question I got in my interview was, tell me about yourself. And so it's very timely that you're able to communicate exactly, who you are. And it's the first time in the interview that you get to sort of craft the narrative that they're going to remember you by. I know to get the first job that I have currently, I went out to lunch with a guy and we ended up talking about basketball the whole entire time, because that was something that came up with our interest right away. And so that actually helped him introduce me to some people who actually made the decision whether or not to hire me. So if you're able to get into those interests and who you are rather quickly in the interview process, I think it definitely does help to make those personal connections, like Julia said. I also think, and I've experienced this, when you get a PhD or a graduate student, you're actually somewhat of a missionary for science. And so anywhere you go throughout the community, when you meet people and they ask you who you are and what you do, and you mention you're a graduate student or you have a PhD, it's really your opportunity to advocate for science and why it's important. So I play a lot of golf. I'm out on the golf course. I get to meet a lot of random people. And it's my opportunity, especially during a pandemic and everything that's going on, to advocate why science is important and why my background in the science discipline that I got my PhD in is important, and why we should listen to people who have expertise and experience in these types of things. So I think having an elevator pitch and being able to communicate that quickly and effectively definitely helps, not only to connect with people in the interview process, but also when you're in your everyday life.
Yes, absolutely. And I love that basketball was your intro into this. That's fantastic. So Gertrude, I have another follow-up question. If since we have the GPS STEM community here and the contestants who are all obviously very passionate about and taking that next step in their journey, is there a piece of advice or something that you would share that might make that journey a little bit easier for people?
A journey into like the next step.
The next stage, yeah. If there's some piece of advice that maybe you found really useful or you wish you had known earlier, if you could, or a lesson that you learned that you could share?
Absolutely. So I think the lesson I can share is that as PhD students, it's important to realize that your specific discipline or even what you're studying currently is not the only value you're getting from grad school, right? You are learning so much more than just that specific thing. You're learning communication skills, you're learning writing skills, you're learning networking skills. There's so many as PhDs, we problem solve every day, all day. That's like we're professional problem solvers. Right. So it's so important to highlight that about you, to not be afraid to highlight that about yourself when you are taking the next step. And it should show, because, I think traditionally academics have been thought to be more subdued or quiet, but, or at least expected. I don't fit that mold. But the point is, don't be afraid to let those facets of yourself show as well, because more than likely you're going to be hired for that than your dissertation. So that's what I would say.
I think that's incredibly important to remember, especially on the harder days, to just really focus on the fact that this is training you for the long run. Absolutely. Julius, do you have any piece of advice that you could share?
Ooh, I mean, Gertrude, I hit a lot of key points in that one. But key advice to share is, I would say, don't be afraid necessarily of what's to come next. I know a lot of us get comfortable, especially in the routine of grad school sometimes, and the safety of academia. And sometimes the idea of stepping outside of that and going into something that is non-traditional. I mean, that's not common with GPS STEM kids. You all have it under control, so that's good. But just stepping out of that comfort zone is actually pretty interesting. And one thing that I always try to emphasize to people is that it's not always all about your research, and it's not always about publications or what you only did in grad school. It's a lot of other skills you do learn in grad school, and one of the key ones is definitely communication. And then being able to just have a conversation with somebody and just be you is very valuable. So I'll leave it as that.
I think that you embody that, the being you. So I think you're showcasing by example. Stefan, do you have anything that you might want to share that would be useful for the community here?
Yeah, I have, I think, two pieces of advice. The first one would be, don't wait until you feel like you're qualified. I think for me, a lot of my time in graduate school, I was thinking, oh, at some point I'll feel empowered to do something. And you realize quickly when you get in the real world, being not graduate school, that you really have to make things happen for yourself. So if you want a job, you have to apply for it. You have to follow up. Like, you have to drive the train of your own success. And so I think a lot of times, maybe in graduate school, some people, myself included, felt like I wasn't ready, or I felt like I wasn't in a place yet, but I was. I just needed to kind of motivate myself to do it. So I would say that, everyone who goes to UC Irvine who I interacted with has been amazing and phenomenal and excellent at what they do. And so just know that going forward, that you know, your UCI doesn't really let in a lot of scrubs. So like, and use that to empower yourself that, you know, you belong there, and use that to continue to progress in what you want to do. And the second piece of advice, I think, especially when it comes to making the next step in the job field and that whole sort of thing, is if you're just a good person, a lot of times that will open up more doors than credentials will. If you send up a follow-up email or just connect with people and really care about them as people, if you ask them about themselves, and you remember those key details, like a lot of times that person is going to walk away being like, wow, I really enjoyed that. And I want to work with that person. A lot of times, you know, people want to work with people who are professional and are competent, but also that are good people as well. And so a lot of times when you go into an interview, you know, you might leave the interview thinking, oh, maybe I didn't do the best that I could. But, you know, maybe throughout the interview, you remember the person's name, you remembered something that they talked about, or you're prepared for the interview and remember those things and could ask them about that. And they're going to leave that interaction thinking more positively about you and maybe wanting to bring you along on their team or hire you for a position. And so, you know, don't feel afraid to write a follow-up handwritten note or send a follow-up email or anything like that, because that will help you get the edge up. Because when you get an interview, that means everyone there has the same credentials. And what's going to push you above the top is the personability that you have and caring about the person. So I think those are the two pieces of advice that I would offer.
I think that's incredibly well said. And I'd like to echo that, which is, you know, part of the reason that we did this competition was because we were hearing a lot of people say, well, this was my resume and this is what I did, tick, 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 tick. You know, what you are is what's on the paper that you're sending in. But it really is about what you're passionate about and how you're putting that passion into action. And really having fun talking about that passion, because when people see other people being passionate, it's almost like something that you don't want to miss out on, because you see that and you jump in. And thankfully, we're all surrounded by amazing people, especially in the GPS STEM program, but on UCI, the entire campus. And people leave and then come back and continue to help the next wave of students. And it's a really beautiful community to be in, but you want to make sure that you're sharing who you are in order to make those connections. And I really appreciate that. David, do you have any follow-ups?
I just wanted to say that this competition has been, I think, spectacularly successful, but really rewarding for me. Every time I go to a pitch competition, whether it's in person or virtual, I'm impressed by the presentations and I enjoy getting to know the students. But since I haven't met a lot of people in the last nine months, I only interact with the people I know, you know, via Zoom, and I give lectures to a screen. And you're all wonderful people. I feel like I know you. I would love to hire any of you. And what Stefan said about being a good person, everybody I know who's a good person has you know, punched above their weight in whatever they did in life. So there are some people who remain nameless, who are really terrible people who have somehow gotten ahead. But most of the time you can count on getting ahead by being a good person. And so, you know, take that with you from tonight. And thanks again for letting us get to know you.
Yes, thank you all. And I would like to now let you know that at least for the competition, we have concluded the results. However, every single person was amazing. And this pitch will evolve. It will change depending on the person you're talking to, and let it live, let it breathe, and let it evolve, but always have fun while telling it. So Harinder, would you like to announce tonight's winners?
For first prize, an amazing pitch goes to Komal Syed. Thank you, Komal, and congratulations.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
And for second prize goes to Zoya and Jake. Congratulations. It's last but not the least is Sophia. Congratulations, Sophia.
Everyone was amazing, and I have zero doubt that when the next networking opportunity comes up, whether it's virtual or whether it's in person, you can share your passion and people can see you in action after that interaction is over. And I really appreciate being able to connect with you all. Judges, thank you for spending the evening listening to these pitches and for contributing not just your time, but your valuable advice. And I would like to thank everyone else who tuned in tonight for helping support this community. And I look forward to continuing to hear about the amazing things that this wonderful community is doing. Thank you all.